So tonight I'm going to tell you something everyone in power knows, but they won't or arguably can't do anything about it. And it's not the news tonight on the biggest story in politics. This federal judge who says he found probable cause to find the Trump administration in contempt of court for refusing to follow the law in one of the two big immigration cases, right? You have this one case, which is where Trump is using this arcane law, the Alien and Enemies Act, to call illegal entrance an invading force of terrorists from Venezuela. That's one. In the other case, the Garcia case, and there could be a contempt ruling coming there as well, we see all these new crumbs that the guy is a bad hombre, while Democrats go to El Salvador to get him back. And guess what? I don't want to talk about either of them. Why? Because I believe they're both distractions. Immigration matters. Look, right? None of this is really what needs to change. Not really, okay? We're focused on it. Why? Because we're being manipulated. Trump looks so much better fighting to remove an alleged bad hombre, and he knows it. And he knows so many of you want someone to challenge the legal system. So he's killing two birds with one stone, right? And it distracts from what? Where he looks terrible, which is the economy. The market fallout is growing. You saw all the red today. The Fed chair now echoing the consensus in the corporate and Wall Street spaces that Trump's tariff moves are doing more harm than good. And the media, let's be honest, we're fine to bounce around because we're looking for clicks and views too. This is a business, news business. Here's the thing. Trump should stick to what is actually his problem right now, because he's scratching at the surface of the greatest unspoken truth in American life, the topic both parties avoid, and what the real power structure is all about. Not transports, not bad hombres, not even reproductive rights, not racial profiling, not democracy dying. The real elephant in the room, the real them versus us. I say Trump is scratching at it because he was when he said, if Wall Street doesn't like the tariffs, if that's what it will take to get production of high-paying jobs back here, too bad. Ooh, that was good. But then his tax policy didn't send that same message, nor do the breaks he's given donors and a bunch of other things. But then you heard the ring of truth again, Bernie and AOC scratching at it with the news that they have a new word for the real power structure in our society, the oligarchs, and why it is that they are getting Trump-sized crowds and raising record money from small donors. Problem with them is they're socialists and capitalism matters in America. So here is the real story, the real problem, the real thing that should unite us against a real them. China is being sold to you as the enemy, right? The disease. I say they are just as much a symptom. The reason we don't make the stuff we wear, but much, much more importantly, the chips, the processors, the reason we're not leading with the robotics factories, the reason they're not all over the place, the reason we don't have clean, new mini nuclear plants doing so much for our energy, the reason the tax code seems to have loopholes for everyone but you, is because the system is designed by and for and controlled by and for and financed by and for the corporate elites. That is the real establishment. Everything comes from that. That's why China is on top. That's why our politics is all about money and dominated by two parties that are constantly dividing us on side issues and trumped up culture wars. It is all done to keep us away from the real problem. Those guys on stage with Trump, the big dollar donors for the Democrats in Silicon Valley and other major industries, they all went to China for what? Cheap labor, no environmental concerns, no labor safety standards. Most of them come from where? The middle class. And then they not only turned their back on it, but they totally screwed it over. And this is not some hot take. It is data. In 1970, the middle class in this country earned 60% of the income. The rich, 30%. China was the 8th largest economy. America was first. Then came the big bad year, 2001. What does this have to do with 9/11? I'm not talking about 9/11. 9/11 was a major catastrophe. Something else happened in 2001. You know what it was? China getting into the WTO, the World Trade Organization. 4 years later, China, fourth biggest economy. Why? Millions of jobs from here sent there. Hey, but that's globalization. We got cheap stuff in return. Okay, but now don't we see that the cost of that cheap stuff was losing what really had value? High-paying jobs for millions of middle-class folk. We traded cheap sneakers for the ability to afford a home, to pay for an education, to build a dream. You think it's a coincidence that after that we saw a spike in folks on Medicaid? You think it's a coincidence that after that credit card offerings and rates jumped? Look at what happened by 2020. The middle class only earned 40% of the income and the rich earned 50%. What changed? I just told you what changed. The system. That's globalization. No, it was a choice. And the rich here made it for the rest of us. And they made out like never before at the expense of the middle class. They did this, and they should pay for it. If you want to sell here, if you want access to the #1 consumer market in the history of creation, you should make here, you should hire here, you should pay here. Certainly a hell of a lot more than you do right now. Trump wants a tax cut? Okay. Cut it for the middle class. Increase taxes on the top. Yeah, I'm talking about me, but I'm not the problem. I'm a high wage earner, but my pay is all income tax. It's not hidden in equity and capital gains or other loopholes. No one makes this the focus, and even when they do, they're renegades, like Bernie. And his remedies and rhetoric attack capitalism, and that's silly. Trump has a chance to be about this. That's why I kept saying his stated goals of making what we want and need right here are admirable. But tariffs are just one tool, and he is arguably not using it well. Well, he had to do something, I agree, but that doesn't mean that anything will make a positive difference. He needs to take away all the advantages China was allowed by America's power establishment in exchange for cheap stuff for us. But what did they get? Many, many, many billions in profits for the few at the expense of the many. If I'm wrong, then why is the number of billionaires with a B in America growing faster than any other socioeconomic group? Did you know that? Google it. And guess what? They ain't making the money here. If Trump or the Democrats want to claim the populist mantle, you cannot give the same people who raped us a tax cut. In 1970, the 400 richest families in America paid over 50% in taxes. By 2018, they paid 23%, which was the first time in history lower than the working class Americans paid. The more you look at the truth, the more it makes you sick. The tipping point was Trump passing his tax cuts. That's when this advantage was locked in. So that's where you got to look. And you want to do tax cuts, that's fine, but it's got to be for the right people. We cannot keep gifting things to people who are giving us nothing. You need more than government spending to close this gap. AOC, Bernie, they don't get it. They think America is about taxing the hell out of you and then having the government give you things. No. It's about ensuring that those who cash in on our consumption pay people here, invest here for that access. That's capitalism for all. We've been through this before. Do your New Deal research. We've seen the gap shrink before. It can happen again, but probably won't. Why? Because whether it's Trump or others in politics, it's hard to focus on what I'm saying right now. It's really even hard to say it the way I do right now. Why? Because their races are funded by who? The people who benefit from the system. And their money dominates politics now thanks to Citizens United. Such an ironic styling, given that that case did the opposite of uniting citizens, right? Because it's what greased the wheels of division. It funded all the division that dominates our politics. You know, before Citizens United, political spending was about $250 million a cycle, which was plenty, right? After $3 trillion by 2020. Look at the graph. This is the big us and them issue. This is what is holding America back. This is what fuels the division, the depression, the gun violence, the racial animus, the social media toxicity. This is the whole enchilada. And every day we don't talk about it, and who is keeping it going is a day we get worse. That's how I see it. Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.